But essentially, I want to make one really important point, which is that bipolar recovery is very rarely an individual journey. And I just want us to really think about how do we involve the people around the person who's experiencing bipolar in that journey. So I did get slightly carried away with gifts when I was doing this. So there's no particular reason it's cows, but they just happen to be some good gifts. So mental health, we all know this, and it's been said in all the talks that I've heard so far, is how important relatives, family, and friends are in the recovery process. And we say this, but do we really support people in that role? Do we really involve people in the therapies that we offer? Do we really think about what the needs are of those relatives and friends and family in terms of this journey? So we actually live in an incredibly individualistic society, and the NHS is a really great example of this. We see mental health problems as being in the individual. Most of our treatments are medication or talking therapies, which are about changing things in the individual, their biochemicals, their thoughts, their behaviors. But actually, we're incredibly social animals, and we don't operate as individuals, we operate as part of networks. So I want to really think about, can we help recovery? When we're thinking about how to develop recovery approaches, let's think about them in a much more systemic way rather than maintaining this individualistic approach. Great cows. So why are friends and family so important? Well, there's really obvious things that have been, reiterated in the literature time and time again. They make us feel loved and held, whoever we are in that moment. They provide this concept of social capital, which is basically access to information, to money, to jobs, all of that kind of stuff. They offer us an opportunity to test our ideas and challenge our thinking. I'm starting to think maybe I'm, I don't know, say everything's going wrong, I'm a bit rubbish at work, everything, and you've got a friend who's going, oh, come on, that went really well, everyone has a bad day. Just simple things, that's not therapy, that's just your mates kind of challenging the way that your thoughts are going early on. They give us the confidence to find a path and reassure us that they will be with us along that path, and none of us want to be on this journey on our own. Humor is incredibly important. When our mood changes, we often lose our sense of humor, and having somebody who's alongside us who hasn't lost their sense of humor can be incredibly helpful. And really importantly is they make us feel needed. I remember somebody saying to me really early on, the best thing you can do for someone who's depressed is ask them to do something for you, because actually putting people in a role where you need them and they need to feel valued can be incredibly powerful in moving them out of that current mood state. But in terms of recovery, I just want to really focus on this idea that recovery is a process, and this is such an important aspect of the concept. And one of the things that happens in mental health is that we get really stuck. And one of the things that gets us stuck is actually mental health services. Somebody mentioned before, you actually technically can't recover from bipolar disorder. I mean, how ridiculous is that? We change all the time in our mental health throughout our lives. But this is a label that technically sticks with people throughout their lives. And sometimes those labels can make us feel like that is who we've become, and we get really stuck with that label. And I think one of the main things that our family and friends can do is actually allow us to change. So sometimes when people take on, in a family, you might see someone who's had mental health problems for quite a long time. Actually, for them to change, the whole system needs to change. The system needs to allow them to become something different. And that's really, really difficult. So there's this lovely phrase to bear in mind is you never meet the same person twice. And this is about not bringing the history when you meet someone that you already know about them, and in particular, the label. So we're not meeting people who have bipolar disorder, we're meeting a person, and actually we may learn about how their mood is today, how it was yesterday, but we're not going to work. Sometimes the system gets people stuck, I think, in terms of the labels. This is just highlighting some really great, these two are books that one of them's a guy talking about his dad who has bipolar. This is Jacqueline Wilson's The Illustrated Mom, which is about a mother who has bipolar. And the middle one's a series that's on the BBC at the moment called In My Skin, which is from a daughter's perspective of having a parent with bipolar. And the thing that really stands out about these experiences is that the person with bipolar fluctuates from being somebody who needs caring for to being someone who is my mom, to being somebody who is my dad in the top case. And actually, they've got to be able to move in and out of those relationships. So allowing people to be well at times and not so well at other times is a really tricky thing to navigate, particularly if you're a child. But it's something that's just so important in that journey. And as the philosopher Jessie J says, it's okay not to be okay. So this is about thinking, what do relatives need to support them to walk through this journey? And I think there's a couple of key things that as services we may need to think about offering. So one is a safe place to grieve when there's loss. So, we talk about positive aspects of bipolar, we talk about high functioning, but the reality is that often this has had devastating impact on people's lives. And for relatives, that can be equally devastating. They had a vision of what their child or their partner was going to be like, and actually it hasn't turned out like that. So having a space to grieve and to be okay with that is really, really important. I think having information about what bipolar is and why these experiences might be happening, and somebody to talk to about those is crucial. Professionals is one option, but other relatives is a really, really important source of support. And I'm just looking at Sue, who's in the room, who's been working on an online peer support forum, which we've built into a program called React. And the point of that program was to get relatives to talk to each other and to really share their experiences. And I think it's just such an incredibly powerful resource in terms of the expertise and knowledge that relatives have. And then just to flag some interesting approaches that are being sort of explored at the moment in the UK, particularly an approach called open dialogue, which is really about creating a conversation or a space for a conversation which involves everybody in the social network and allows people to progress in that context rather than seeing the individual as being somebody who has a mental health problem. So I'm sorry for talking so fast, but I think the key point is just we need to think about recovery as a shared experience, and I love the cow gifts. Thank you.